What is the difference between hourly rate, which I think we talked a lot about just now, and piece rate? I think most people might understand this, but is one better than the other? And what would you advise if someone's going for an hourly rate or a piece rate? Go ahead, Nicholas.
Well, I don't think there's a right or a wrong answer to this. Getting paid piece rate or by the piece is how workers are often paid. On one hand, it allows fast workers to potentially earn more money than a flat hourly rate. However, employers can also use it to abuse workers and lead to problems if a worker is unable to earn, say, at least the minimum wage when they're working by the piece rate. That is, a worker must be able to earn at least the state or federal minimum wage if it's an H-2A worker. That would be the prevailing wage or the adverse effect wage rate that we discussed earlier.
Okay, Mike?
Just to maybe clarify one point, which is that a worker, whether you're being paid by the hour or by the piece, if you're protected by the minimum wage law, you are entitled to the minimum wage. In New York, Elena has already told us what that is. Here in Maine, for farm workers, it's the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour. And even if you are paid by the piece, the amount of money that you earn each week has to equal at least the number of hours you work times whatever the minimum wage is. And if it doesn't, it's the employer's obligation to pay you the difference. And that's one of the reasons why it's so important to keep track of your hours, like Nick was saying earlier, because if you keep track of your hours while you're being paid by the piece, each week you'll be able to figure out how much you should have made and whether the piece rate earnings that you have equal the minimum.
Okay, Elena?
Yeah, and just to add to that, if you are on, like Nicholas said, if you are on the H-2A farm and you're being paid piece, your minimum wage, so to speak, is actually that adverse effect wage rate. And so your pieces need to at least add up to that amount per hour. So for last year in New York, it was $14.29. In terms of keeping track of your hours, one of the things that LASME and Pinetree have a long history of doing together is actually distributing calendars that, have a lot of farm workers' rights laid out on them, but also literally have a calendar inside where workers can keep track of how many, there, Nicholas is showing it right now, literally keep track of how many pieces they're picking or how many hours they're working. Because one of the things that we see a lot is that this kind of math, it's easy to get lost in it because it can be a little complicated. And employers sometimes do fudge hours, and knowing that workers might not notice, or they might not feel like they can speak up about it, or they might not be knowledgeable of the law, might not know that they have to make at least, XYZ minimum wage, hourly wage, or AWARE wage. So yeah, what Mike said, keeping track of your hours, both what you're picking and how many hours you're working, how long you're waiting around, waiting for a tractor to come back with supplies or equipment. From the moment you start working to the moment you're done working, you need to be being paid, unless it's it's some kind of lunch break of 30 minutes or longer. There are exceptions, but just keep track of those, and that's the best way to protect yourself and protect your income.
Right, because a lot of employers, when they're paying people by the piece, don't even bother to keep track of your hours. That's why it's important that you do it. They're not supposed to do that. They're supposed to keep track of your hours, even if you're being paid by the piece. But a lot of employers don't do that.